Well, good evening and welcome to the newest edition of the Online Wine Tasting Club.
Dobry večer.
Oh my word, here he goes, here he goes.
I've remembered some of them from last time, but not many.
Get your notes in the chat, but I'm going to apologise for Mr. Taylor in advance. He's been cooking today. We've got a meal. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, we are doing comparing Ukraine this evening. So for those joining us for the first time, love to see you. We've got 6 wines. We're going to go through them 2 by 2, a bit like the Ark, yeah?
Absolutely, 2 by 2 by 2.
But feel free to put your comments in the chat. We've got the Slido to put in your tasting notes and join the quiz at the end of the show. So you can scan the QR code or you can go to towtc.co.uk.
We've got another Alex in the chat.
Taste. There's another Alex in the chat.
Hello, good evening.
But most importantly, we have our superstar guest host, Sera, who's joining us this evening. For those of you who have been with us a little while, you may remember we did a full-on Ukrainian tasting at the end of last year, where we did a lot of indigenous learning to pronounce words that we didn't know how to pronounce, grapes, and some absolutely brilliant wines. But we had a chat at the London Wine Fair, and we thought, what if we try and give Ukraine kind of a sense of place against the rest of the world? So I tasted what I thought was some absolutely brilliant international grapes from Ukraine at the London Wine Fair, and thought we put them up. We're not putting them up. It's not
a contest.
It's not a competitive tasting, but very much more to see, is Ukraine doing something that you would expect with this grape that's, similar to the rest of the world, or is it doing something different? And I think that's no different to looking at Sancerre versus Marlborough. Both Sauvignon Blancs, both very different, both can be brilliant wines, but in their own right. But yes, we're going to go through Slido as normal, so we'll have 2 wines side by side. Tasting notes will come up for one, then for the other. We're not voting for which one's the best. We'll have at the end of the night, what your favourite wines were. But before I'm yabbering on, we can start pouring wine number 1 and wine number 2 into the glass so you've got them. But I'm going to introduce Sera. And Sera, tell us about you, for those who haven't met you, what you do, why you're so brilliant, and why you want to come and do a tasting with us.
Oh, you're too kind. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Sera. I'm originally from Ukraine. And I'm WST Educator. I'm doing loads of social media. I'm doing marketing, and I'm just trying to make wine great again and to make you drink amazing wines and never regret your buying choices and your bottle choices.
Fantastic. Make wine great again. I love that. Yeah. There have been...
Make Albarino great
make
again.
Albarino great again. M-A-G. There's something in that. M-A. Yeah, no. Goodness sake. No, it's an absolute pleasure to get the chance to explore. We had some great fun deep diving into I'm not allowed to call them native grape varieties for some reason now. It has been so declared that one must use the word autochthonous, but there we are. It means the same thing as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, we are now doing the international grapes. So we're starting with Albarino, which obviously is one of the up-and-coming grapes of the year. And we've talked a lot about Albarino from Uruguay, which is, but I think for me, this is the key thing. Like, we're talking about comparing, and it's part of it is like, what is each bringing? But part of it is just a technical exercise of what do the different climates do? And, what can we taste? So what can we learn from what does a warmer climate or a cooler climate or whatever it happens to be, the different kinds of soil, what does that bring to the wine? So we have, first of all, we've got the Baikush. Is that pronounced right? Sorry.
Very, very good pronunciation.
Baikush. Okay. That is our starting wine. So we're back down in the Odessa region, I think, if I remember right.
We're in Mykolaiv. This one is close.
Oh, sorry, Mykolaiv.
See, this is why we bring the professional on to talk about the regions. So you can start with wine number 1 and move the Slido on, and then Sera can tell us all about the wine. How about that?
Slido on? Yeah, that's good.
Brilliant. So yeah, Sera, if you want to give us a bit of an introduction to the wine, the region, and it's all over to you.
I would love to. So I think Albarino is having quite a moment, so I'm very excited to do this comparison. But obviously, this is not the grape variety you are first looking when you hear about Ukraine, and that's what you expect. I would say that it's the only winery in the Ukraine at the moment who are doing Albarino. The reason is that the owner, he also lived in Spain and lives in Spain at the moment, quite big time, can be like quite a lot of like long time, part of the year and everything. And he decided to plant it, but they did consult with winemakers and international winemakers, and apparently the climate in that part is particularly suitable for this grape variety. Even though they're in the south of the country and their summers are pretty warm, but they're located in one of the biggest bird sanctuaries, and they have loads of this kind of flat-ish and rolling hills with loads of winds exposure from different sides, because you have the Sea of Azov being quite close. You have like a coastal part, and all the winds are tunneling towards the place where the winery is located. They're quite lucky to have quite low disease pressure and also quite a lot of cooling influences, especially during the night.
And I think that's massively important for Albarino, is to have that cooling influence. If you look at, the two places that I'm more aware of, Albarino is in Galicia. You're very much coastal in the northwest of Spain, and then if you look at Canelones in Uruguay, it's basically across the Atlantic doing the same thing. You're coastal, you've got those breezes coming in. So even if you are slightly warmer, you have that diurnal shift, you have that breeze coming through, and you've got that moderating effect from the from the ocean, which makes it helpful. But what's interesting, you mentioned that there's some actual Spanish heritage and influence bringing these grapes into the Ukraine. And I think that's brilliant. Wine is becoming a little bit more global, that it's not always the winemaker was there and their son was there and their son was there and their daughter was there and they've always been in the same place. We're starting to see more winemakers get out of the family winery, go and travel, do some vintages elsewhere, and bring their learnings back to, their roots. Is that what we're seeing here in the Ukraine, that people have gone and, been involved in other parts of the world and gone, oh, I'd like to do some Albarino, I'd like to do some Pinotage? Is that kind of how we're seeing these more international varietals going, or are people just going, I've had one of them and I'd like to do it?
I think that in general, Ukraine is lucky as old new winemaking region. We have a long story, but history of winemaking. But obviously, we did hit a pause during Soviet Union. But nowadays, it kind of is blessing in disguise, because we are less dogmatic. The whole wine world is kind of getting out of this dogmatic approach due to the climate change, due to the taste change and everything around. And Ukraine is much more free and can do what they can, but they also are quite scientific and technological. So they are taking like the best technologies immediately. I would say that you can see different things happening in Ukrainian winemaking. First of all, there is a lot of support from wine community, and you have scholarships like Gerard Bassage scholarship for wine professionals living in war, where you have a chance to go to different parts of the world to see what they're doing and then to bring this knowledge back to Ukraine. And some people are doing it. It's not a necessary condition of the scholarship, but many people want to bring everything they've learned back. I think people are quite experimental, and you see like different things going on. But I would say that in general, like it's a lot about experiment and just like tries and trying to do some things that are interesting and exciting, and studying soils and seeing patterns in the climate, and then seeing what you can do with it if you're not going with indigenous Ukrainian grape varieties.
And I think that's fun. You look at a lot of the world, and there's so many rules and regulations, whether it's DOCG or AOC or DR, whatever it is. And I completely understand they have to be there for provenance and protecting the consumer and people understanding what they're going to get. But it's kind of nice to have that flexibility as well. And it's kind of, where can you get the best of both worlds? Last month I was in Bordeaux, in Premier Côte de Bordeaux, and it was brilliant. And there's lots of wines that tick the boxes and do the appellation rules, and they're delicious. But there was also a lot of just vin de France, where they were using, there was an Albarino Vermentino blend, which was brilliant, absolutely brilliant glass of wine. But because it's not fitting the structure, it's just dropped down as a vin de France. And therefore people see it as a table wine. I think sometimes when you've got some of the and I know it's not new, but the newer wines getting onto a more global scale, when you look at, you know, Ukraine or Romania or some of the South American wineries, they're able to kind of do the best of what they do and go, I'm making this just because it's really good. And you've got that ability to plant and try and experiment. And if it's brilliant, let's do loads of it. And if it's not, it's okay. And if you've got a plot of land that doesn't quite fit the XYZ grape that you should grow, you're not stuck with it.
As well. And I think that's one of the lovely things. We've got obviously Albarino as a variety which we've seen a couple of people trying. We've seen a bit of Sauvignon Blanc being tried in England. And there's been this whole kind of argument about, are we trying to preserve the image of English wine? It's like, well, what image has English wine got worldwide? I mean, yeah, people might have started to hear that we're starting to do a kind of a classical traditional method, sparkling, but come on, our very basis is in this is creativity. And I think that's what I love about regions that aren't bound by the rule book that has been there for 100 years. I mean, good luck trying to get the Bordelais to change their rules and allowing Albarino and what was the other grape that you Viognier, did you say?
Vermentino
into the classic thing. Anyway, we are having with our Albarino tonight this little thing that I've bashed up called Sirniki. Is that right?
It's very correct. It's a cottage cheese pancakes.
A cottage cheese pancake, exactly, which can be sweet. It can be used for breakfast as well as for a lighter meal as well. Obviously, you'd have it with more berries and things.
Pancakes all day.
Pancakes all day. But yeah, I think it's. I'm really looking forward to trying this.
But does it pair with Spanish Albarino?
Does it pair with? Well, that's a great question indeed.
Did you make them sweet or savory?
These are savory with some sour cream and a little bit of dill and some onion as well.
We're gonna have to start, putting dry goods in there, some flour and sour. We'll put the sour, get a little eco-soup pouch of sour cream.
Genuinely did look
with sour cream in Ukrainian food. Like, it's never too much.
It's tough to try to get the food sent out on
there's a quick question there that I don't have the answer on the text yet, and you might know, Sarah. Do you know what the RS is on this? I'm guessing it's quite low, probably about maybe 2 or 3 grams, if that.
Yeah, I think it's 1.9.
Okay.
I'll take that one.
so what we're saying is I'm wrong.
No, like you're stuck around 2
or 3 miles ahead. Yeah,
I think it's quite ripe on the nose, which can give a perception of higher sugar. But if you like, I can double check this information and send it with all the text sheet for that.
Well, I think that's the first example of the difference of the climates that we're starting to see, because obviously where you have the Spanish Albarino is right up traditionally on that very northwest corner of the country, and it's exposed to, let's be honest, transatlantic breezes which are cold, and so we're now obviously in a very different climate. You've got the fact that it's not an ocean, it is a much warmer body of water. It's shallower. It's not got those huge distances to gust up and get the coldness. And so I think you do taste the ripeness of the fruit, and that ripeness is coming through. Now you can see it in the tasting notes there. We've got melon, pear, honey, but you've still got that an apricot as well in that sort of. But it's delicious.
And I think this is this point here about that feeling of sweetness is one of the. When I got into wine, one of the hardest things to learn, that because something tastes sweet, because it's honey or melon or all these things that we associate with being sweet and being sugary, doesn't actually mean that it is sweet. It's the chemical compounds that give those flavors, and sweetness is a fact. It either has sugar or it doesn't have sugar.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But you look at, there's a level of complexity here, isn't there? There's melon, there's pear, there's green apple, it's saline. And
shall I move on to the other one just to get a contrast?
So I just wanted to have a quick look at that, and now let's move on to that, and then we can flip backwards and forwards and have a look at the two. But if I was given that as a blind tasting, I'd pick that as Albarino. I wouldn't say that it's something weird and wonderful that's changed somewhere. It's without a question about Albarino
and good quality.
So I really quite like that. So.
Oh, thank you. I exactly was thinking about this when I was pouring this sample. I would be like, okay, if I'm doing a blind tasting, would I say that it's Albarino? And I would. And I think that it's also quite nice that we're comparing wines that don't have a lot of extra flavors added during the winemaking. So we are having wines without any malolactic fermentation without any oak, and it's pretty interesting because you can literally feel like how the grape itself is growing in this particular place.
I think what's really interesting. So moving on to wine two, which is your Galician,
Classic.
stylistically, as you'd expect Albarino, is the first thing I notice is it feels a little touch fresher, a little bit more acidity, a little bit more zip about it. But that probably is exactly what we just discussed. The climate in Ukraine probably a little bit more temperate, a little bit more moderated, whereas the Atlantic Ocean, you've probably got a little bit more peak and trough, a little bit of that extremities. And I think it's brilliant that you can taste those two wines and go, yeah, there's that slight difference, and you can tell, you can have a reason why. And it's not, once again, it doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It means
well, this is
it
the
gives
exact
a sense
sort of test
place.
when you're studying for a Master of Wine, and certain people among us would know more about that than others. I don't know anything about it, but from what I've heard, the classic kind of example of the blind tasting test that you have is that single varietal. Now, tell me what you can taste and what that tells you about the place that they're from. And I think that's a really interesting thing. I think you get a bit of it at diploma level, but not so much as that classic. Here are 3 wines, and what is the grape, and where are these different ones from? So I think that's absolutely fascinating. But yeah, a bit more sharpness. Strangely, and someone else said this, not as much salinity in the Spanish one as I was expecting, because again, with that incoming breeze and the sea, quite often you think of a little bit of salinity with a Spanish one, but I don't. I'm exactly the same. Kathy thinks the same. More salinity in wine 1 than wine 2. Not what you'd have expected, will you?
But that's the joy of having the tastings.
That is the joy of having the
tastings. So wine 2 is Vino Amarante. So we're in Rías Baixas, and it's a family-owned cooperative. There's about 80 families are involved in this winery. So there's a lot of bits in Albarino, in Rías Baixas. It's a bit compartmentalized. Exactly. I'm just throwing words out there. And sometimes co-ops are great, and sometimes co-ops are awful, because they can be those two extremities. So sometimes a co-op is, I've got some grapes, throw it in the middle. What's the best we can do? And then sometimes co-ops are brilliant family farms, but they just don't make enough. They don't grow enough to be commercially viable, and they don't need to have a winery and a press and a this. So they'll all work together to create the best stuff that they can. And these guys are exactly that. But I really think, across the 2 wines, for a international grape that isn't one of the top names, not Chardonnay, not Riesling, not Sauvignon Blanc, not Chenin, I really think Albarino is on a bit of a wave right now to join those top name grapes. I think it's going to be, when we talk about the bigs, if we talked about the big 6, that you'd have Chardonnay, Riesling, Chenin, Pinot Gris, Sauvignon. I think Albarino is going to catch that before Viognier or Verdejo or anything else. I think Albarino is going to be that next.
It's got that star quality.
I think before peak, Peak Pole had a bit of a peak. But I think Albarino has got that brilliant consistency. It can grow in a few different places, and I think it's an absolutely brilliant wine to get people into. There's nice fruit, there's nice acid, it's well balanced. It's a very people-pleasing kind of wine, is Albarino.
Absolutely agree, and also quite food-friendly wine as well.
It works incredibly well with these pancakes. It is stunning. Absolutely.
I never doubted your cooking and wine pairing skills. Like never.
I don't think I've tried cottage cheese in anything since I was a kid, and this is a bit of a revelation. It's really delicious.
I asked about the aging potential. Yeah, like I think that like that's what I wanted to mention, that Spanish especially are working a lot into getting as much out of Albarino as possible. They are doing sparkling wine traditional method Albarino. They are doing aged in a bottle. They are doing a bottle and oak aging as well. So they do push the limits and show all the different phases of Albarino depending on what we are doing. And I've tried some fantastic examples, like 8 years old, absolutely outstanding, very beautifully aged wine, and all this apricot kernel is coming out. It's beautiful.
I think there's a lot of flexibility with this grape, and I think we're going to start seeing. Generally, it is this very fresh, bright style, but I think we're going to people start to play with it as it gets more. And I think it's got enough about it. If you wanted to do a bit of lees aging, if you wanted to stick it in a barrel for 6 months or something like that and play with it, quite like we're seeing a lot of people doing with Sauvignon Blanc now. I think it's got a lot of potential for winemakers who want to have a little bit of fun and do something a little bit different and push the boundaries to play with and experiment with. I think it's a great grape for that.
Exactly, and unlike like places like Soave, for instance, with Garganic or something, this grape doesn't have to fight bad reputation, or like Grüner Veltliner, you know. This grape doesn't have a bad history behind, so it can get quite far quite quickly.
Yeah, if only there was someone in the chat who might make an Albarino and crowdsource it and see if we wanted to put it in a barrel or not. Alex, give us a shout. That's your next plan.
You're not talking to me.
I'm not talking to you.
He's not talking to me. I think it's very interesting because they are the same vintage. So I don't know what the difference in picking dates. It doesn't really matter. I think it's in terms of the aging. I'd have said that it feels like the Ukrainian one has had a little bit more age than the other one if I was tasting them blind. Not in a bad way at all. It just feels that slightly more rounded, slightly softened expression of the grape. And I'd be fascinated to know. I mean, so what was the treatment of the grapes throughout that process from the vineyard right the way through in comparison? Because obviously you've got so many choices about where you let oxygen into this process. And there is no right or wrong answer. It's not less oxygen's better. It's not more oxygen's better. It's just what do you want the wine to do? And obviously there are practical, considerations in terms of this as well. But it feels like there perhaps was a touch more oxygen in it, but it's still got such fresh acidity. Like I gave it the classic acid test where, for those of you who haven't done your WSETs, if you take the wine into your mouth and then you swallow it or spit it, doesn't matter, and then you just sort of feel how much your tongue is kind of salivating, what it's doing. That's your body's natural response to try to respond to the acidity. Yeah. And it is zippy. It really has that acidity, and just every bit as much as the Spanish one. So it's got that, but it's also got this like more rounded characteristic to it. I honestly, really fascinating comparison, and two different styles, but not a million miles apart, are they?
They're not at all, and they're both brilliant. You know how I said I don't like blanket statements? I'm going to make an absolute blanket statement here. Sometimes when there's countries that are a little bit more up and coming on the global market, I keep saying new countries, but they're not new countries. They've been making wine forever, but they have their own grapes, their own grapes that people haven't heard of, and they've got weird and wonderful names, so therefore they find it quite difficult to sell into a new market. A lot of the time they will go out and they'll plant some Merlot and they'll plant some Pinot Noir and they'll plant some Chardonnay for the sake of having an international grape that they can go, oh, we have a Chardonnay, but also we've got this and this and this, and that tags along.
You see it in Greece, don't you? Like, this is Sauvignon Blanc with a Certico, and it's like it's 85% Certico.
But my point is here is this one is brilliant in its own right. It's not the winery's gone, oh, we've got to plant something a bit more commercial so we can get more international, and it's a bang average Albarino that's no good. This is fantastic.
It's done by somebody who loves it and who understands the grape.
So can we flick back and just kind of, if we have a look at that, we've got a lot of peach, apricot, lemon, so a little bit more kind of like stone fruity kind of things.
Like that. No, that doesn't. That will be better. Right? Sorry, I'm going to make you smaller, but that will let us just quickly. So peach, lemon, apricot, but we've got lychee, strawberry's an interesting tasting note, isn't it? Because
but a lot of those kind of stone fruits in there is your big ones. And then what do we have if we go back, compare that to the
how do I do that? Like that. There we are. So more melon,
apple,
so a bit of malic acid in there.
Yeah.
Badger.
There's a badger in wine one.
But salt and salinity, which is again absolutely fascinating that there's not more of that in the other one.
But you've still got the same tasting. You've still got apricot and peach and salinity around it. So you've got very similar tasting notes,
Yeah.
but where the intensity lies differs, which is really quite interesting.
I love the honeyed melon loveliness. That's excellent. That's great.
Fantastic. So should we move on to a little Pinotage?
Oh, do we have to?
Yes.
Now, I'm the first to admit, like, there are certain grape varieties which I have a slightly adverse reaction to when I hear the name. And I've had some lovely Pinotages, but I don't think I would be alone in being a little bit intimidated by this one, but we shall see.
So before we dive in, I think my theory on Pinotage, whole blanket history of Pinotage here, is when South African wine was first starting to make its moves internationally into the UK, it needed to have a bit of a lowest common denominator to be price competitive with the Australias, the Argentinas, the other kind of and I know all these countries make brilliant wines. Before anyone jumps on my head, but those value-driven, slightly maybe a little bit more bulk New World wines, and I think South Africa had a lot of problem with leaf roll and these overly tarry TCPE kind of Pinotages where they'd had leaf roll.
It was an acquired taste,
and I think there was a massive marketing campaign to tell people that's what Pinotage tastes like.
Yeah,
and that's not what Pinotage. That's bad Pinotage. Good Pinotage can be delicious.
But I think it's important as well to remember the almost socio-political context of the whole South African wine community at the time, which was that it was, for very good reasons, being shunned by the world. Like, the whole of South Africa was having massive campaigns to say, boycott this stuff. We don't want to have South African wine. We don't want to support it. And that pushed the prices down. So the prices going down made the vigneron, as it were, the growers, they didn't have the luxury of saying, well, why don't we just pull up this whole thing and let's get rid of this all, because quite clearly it's diseased. Like, let's try to nuke the soil, as it were, and just get rid of it all, replant it in a few years when the virus is gone, and see with that. That's why it's almost a defense mechanism to say, yes, that's what it's supposed to taste like. But Pinotage is a blend between Pinot Noir, which I think, generally speaking, a lot of people would think as one of the kings of grapes, and Sanso. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Which is another fantastic grape. So why would it be that there's anything wrong with that? So I'm going to have a taste of this.
So it came around. So the early 1900s. There's a massive glut of Sanso in South Africa, and it was massively used table wine, lakes and lakes and lakes of it, and there was no need for it. And there was a whole thing for Pinot Noir, and Pinot Noir, it was too hot to grow Pinot Noir
in South Africa, apart from a couple of little pockets.
So there was a general decision that, well, Sanso grows really well, and we like Pinot Noir, so if we stick them together, we might get that, and then out with Pinotage. So it is, there isn't very many other places that I'm aware that grow Pinotage outside of South Africa. I know there's a little bit in California, but also Ukraine. So this from Bekush, this series at this level, it's all single varietal, isn't it?
Yeah.
So why Pinotage?
They had a research, and this was one of the suggested grapes. They planted different samples, and it worked really good. Easy.
It makes sense. Could you remind me, how warm does it get when you're down on the coast between Odessa and Mykolaiv? How warm is a summer there?
Normal summer would be something about 30, 32 during the day. So it's not like extremely crazy. And you have a lot of moderating effects during the winter. So winter is probably usually around like -2, -3, -4, like for a month. Surprisingly, when we have this fantastic summer here in England, in Ukraine, they have English summer this year. It's mostly raining. It's quite cold all the time, and we're literally swapped countries. It's But yeah, it's not crazily hot and it's not crazily cold during the winter time. But yeah, I think they also decided to do something a bit different. I already had a little look at the comments, and they did try to do something different with Pinotage and maybe show a bit more of Pinot Noir in this Pinotage nature rather than full-bodied, like classic South African expression of it.
It is. It feels a very kind of soft, juicy style of Pinotage. Sometimes Pinotage can be a bit grippy. The tannins can be a little bit rough around the edges. This is a very, very smooth drinking, juicy, dark fruit kind of wine.
So my first comment is,
Chile. It's nice chillable red as well. It makes it really nice. I mean, like not to chill up to 10 degrees, but around 14 is probably ideal temperature.
Yeah, just knock a little bit of that heat off it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, have it slightly chilled. This is you could quite happily sit outside in the summer with this, chilled down a little bit with the barbecue on. I think would be quite good. I think it would be quite good. So in this range, we've had just to go a bit off piece there. We've had an Albarino, we've had a Pinotage. Are they making any other single varietals, or have they got anything else in the works? What's next for these guys as far as
You mean for these grapes or in general for Bacchus?
In general for Bacchus. So we've got some Albarino, we've got some Pinotage. What are the next things that are either on the market or being trialed?
They are working within, like, they have one of the best expression of our indigenous grape varieties, TOWTC. And also, if you show bottles, you will see that like this Pinotage and Albarino is coming from the same series, and this series of wine is dedicated to different birds. And as I've mentioned, this is the biggest European bird sanctuary. And apparently every year birds are getting excited about one particular grape. So one year they destroy Riesling. Last year, I think they destroyed Chardonnay. And this is kind of tribute to birds and kind of giving like a little offering, hoping that maybe they will leave grapes alone. But this is like a nice series of them, and TOWTC is one of it. They also
birds
have
are the Ukrainian badgers.
Yes, yeah.
Because, but yeah, no, what I love about the label here is that I can't show. I was trying to bring it up on the other camera, but we have the bird on the front of that. He is called Mr. Pinotage.
Yeah, very cute one.
And likewise on the Albarino.
Yeah, like they grow quite different grape varieties, and Bacchus, I would say, is probably one of the most medal acclaimed like wineries. They are quite famous, and professional wine world finds their quality of these wines outstanding. And also Bacchus wine is quite experimental. They do make fantastic dual blends of two grape varieties, Tempranillo and Saperavi, for instance, or Chardonnay and Riesling, and then aged in amphora. They do work a lot with single grape varieties, and they have Chardonnay, they have TOWTC, Pinotage, Albarino as a single grape variety. I had a rumor that they might have Odessa Black, which is our black indigenous grape variety, but it's not on the market just yet, and definitely not in the UK. Yeah, they have quite interesting like blends and single varietal things. They have single varietal Riesling, but I would say that if they go for single varietal, it's quite a pattern for Bacchus at the moment to do something very different, like this Pinotage. It's not the expression of Pinotage. When you have single varietal Riesling from Bacchus, they also like to put their print on it, and they make it in amphoras. They have two different amphoras in the wineries, one a bit more porous, which is giving a little bit more oxygen, and another is a bit more like sturdy. So they have Riesling in amphora, and I think someone just mentioned that they have this Riesling.
Yeah, Joanna there.
It's very interesting wine.
I think it's really interesting that. And I'm sorry, I will bring back the previous one, which was about a style for the winery, like crisp, clean. That makes, you know, to get wine that is crisp, clean means you have a winemaker who's determined to eliminate certain things from the processes, and to keep things crisp and clean means to eliminate dirtiness, oxygen. It means how you pump, how you transfer things between different containers. There are so many different things that you can control to do that. So I think that is almost like a statement of intent of the winemakers there. I think that's really interesting. We have a little bit of food because Kathy was talking about her steak, which would go with it. We have here coteletti, and I've forgotten the name for the other bits. We have some stewed cabbage. I can't remember what that was called, and we have some basically stewed cabbage.
Soft.
I'll see if I can find the name, and we have some potatoes with it. We also have a sauce made with chilies. We've got a little bit more of the sour cream. The sauce made with chilies and peppers is called, where's it gone? Yes, that's it, ajica. We have ajica. We have my word, it doesn't matter. We have stewed cabbage. We have potatoes. And we have these wonderful little.
Isn't it amazing what AI can do for you these days?
Welcome to AI. I'm very, very jealous.
but yeah. So hopefully, what we think with this is that the slight, the kind of nature of this, the meat blended with some breadcrumbs and onion, will give it a little bit of sweetness. It doesn't overpower the wine. So where you've got a lighter style wine like Pinotage or Merlot, it's not too dominant. And yeah, we'll give that a go with it as well. But I'm really pleasantly surprised by both of these. I'm fascinated to see that in many ways, I think that just like we said, the Ukrainian one is even still cleaner than the already excellent.
Yeah, I think let's move the tasting notes on to wine for so people can start putting them in.
So I'll just bring them up just so we can just have another little look at those. Blackberry, plum. So effectively, lots and lots of fruit, a little bit of stewed fruit, but none of that horrific kind of tasting notes you would see with
poor quality
Pinotage. Yes, exactly. I'll turn that off and we shall move it on. So
wine number 4. This is
a friend of ours.
We're in Swartland, single vineyard, the Calistig vineyard. This is a warm part of South Africa, so you get a lot of ripeness, a lot of richness. But this is it's quite a cool story. I like the story behind it. And we met, was it last year he popped in? Jeremy Borg from Painted Dog. They started this project in 2006 and created great winery, great wines. But if you can see on the labels, here we go. There is the African hunted dog.
I'm gonna have to bring the camera up, aren't I? It is a little bit blurry.
Well, you got the picture in your tasting notes, so it's all right. So it's the African hunting dog. What are you doing?
Well, I brought the extra camera up and it's vanished.
So you can't have two cameras looking at you.
Yes, we can. There we go.
Oh, cool. Lovely.
So that is the Painted Wolf. It's reversed because it loves to do that.
That's
I will fix that.
Dog's just looking the other way.
The dog is looking the other way. But yeah, the painted wolves. We have them in our local zoo here at Whipsnade, and they are very, very shy creatures. They're amazing, aren't they? They work so well as a pack, but they're just they're not kind of shouty animals, are they?
No, not at all. And yes, it's you go to Whipsnade, there's many animals that you can guarantee to see, and the hunting dogs are always kind of, can you see it? Is it in the den? Is it there? Whatever.
And this one is called Guillermo. Where's it gone? There. And that was the name of one of the dogs, wasn't it?
No,
that
was the name.
Oh, that's the name of the vineyard. Oh, sorry.
No, also no. That's what the name of one of the first investors. Billy Guillermo. But hey, that's a good guess.
I very much remember him saying the dogs.
On the one of the levels, it is named after the dogs, but this one is this one's named after the investor.
There was some method in the madness.
Okay, absolutely. Right. But I think what's great about this is I think it's brilliant wine. It's relatively small production. They've got 5 or 6 different vineyard sites. But all the focus is on Pinotage and Chenin Blanc. So it's South African classic.
Yes.
Yeah. But the other thing that they do when they come to their conservation and their the African hunting dog fund is a lot of people who go out and go, oh, we're going to do charity and we're going to give them 10% of our profits, and then go, oh, there weren't any profits, you don't get anything. They do 4% of their total revenue. So regardless of everything else, like the money comes off the top to look after the project, rather than it all disappears and it's, you know, left at the end, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And yeah, to sit and chat with him and, you know, have that conversation about the African hunting dogs and tell the story, you know, I've got, you know, because we're only, you know, I live 15 minutes down the road from Whipsnade Zoo. We've got the year passes. It's like, I must have been up there 100 times with my kids to see that.
Yeah.
And they go, you know, we're part of that conservation there. We're part of it being in the wild. We're part of that whole thing, that you can actually see where, you know, the good work's been done, which I think is absolutely brilliant. But as far as the wine, I think this is more typical as I'd expect a Pinotage to be. You know, you look at the tasting notes on the screen. There's that more. There's more of that smokiness to it. There's more of that little bit of grippiness to it. There's a little bit more of wow, full on cherry.
But lots of people enjoying the wine 3. That's fantastic. And a very interesting comment about how there are obviously 2 different vintages here. One from the Ukrainian one from 25, and the South African one from 21, with a lot more age on it, but still with more pronounced tannins. Again, these are stylistic choices that are made. Obviously, part of it's affected by how much color do the skins get, how much of that ultraviolet light are they exposed to, much of the skin's almost tan under the sunlight. But other parts of it are down to, well, then how much time do you give it on the skins? How much extraction do you give it? How much do you punch that wine around while it's in the fermentation process? And when we say punch, we literally mean punching it down with big, almost like potato mash. It's a massive thing, using the technical terms here. But the punch down process, pumping it over, all helps bring those tannins, the color out of it. And so you can see here a very different expression of the grape. Again, the technique, you can see it right there in the glass, right in front of you. The evidence is right there. How much of it then comes down to stylistic choices versus the terroir? I think that's the interesting bit, because especially if you're trying to identify these blind, you can overwork a wine and try to over extract those kind of tannins and color and all of that from it, can't you? You can really overdo it if it didn't quite ripen up enough naturally. And likewise, you can take a very, very ripe one and you can potentially just leave it a little bit too long and it gets a bit too much in there. So it's a real delicate balance. And so you've got both characteristics, the person making it and the place it's made. I think that's what's fascinating about wine.
So, Sarah, with something like this Pinotage, is this designed to be drunk right now and get on with it, or is it designed? Do you think it could age, and if so, how long? What are your thoughts on the longevity of something like this?
Yeah, this is quite low extraction style. Very careful picking, very careful ripening, and this wine didn't see any oak. It's like on purpose to show the purity of the fruit. Acidity is pretty much there, so I can expect that it will keep in a bottle for at least another 4 or 5 years. I would not say it's not a Bordeaux style wine, which you would want to put in your cellar for 30 years. So it's meant to be nice and fresh and fruit forward rather than forest floor or mushroom forward from the bottle aging, but it will definitely keep for at least 4 or 5 years and deliver the same freshness and purity of the fruit.
And I think that's a really interesting point, because there's a lot of people out there who go for a wide to be brilliant, it needs to be able to for 5, 10. I don't have the patience for them. I'm like, if something's aged 5, 10, 15 years, I need it already done so I can buy it and drink it. You know, I think we're getting into a much more, people want to be able to pick up a bottle of wine and drink it and it be at its peak. You know, we look at what Rioja does, that they'll age it and put it in the bottle before it gets released. And I think we're seeing more wineries trying to make a more drinkable right now style, because I think less and less people have the patience.
Who's got the space?
B has the space to look after it for 5 years, or you know, B the someone comes around, I just open that anyway. So are you seeing that kind of across Ukraine? Are people trying to make a more drinkable now style, or is there still a lot of things that are being made to develop, or a bit of a mix and match?
I think in general, this is probably part of the wine education, because with like aging wine and keeping wine in a bottle are two different things. And aging wine is one thing that you want to develop something else, and keeping in a bottle longer, it's some other thing, which is absolutely different. I would say that in general, yeah, Ukraine has very modern taste nowadays. We had this period from Soviet Union when you had this medium sweet or medium dry wines with residual sugar and so on. And of course, there is still like older people who might enjoy the styles, which reminds them of their youth or whatever. When we talk about winemaking, I would say that Ukraine is quite progressive, both in terms of making their own wines, and Ukraine exports fantastic wines. I'm traveling around the world as a part of my work and my education, and I'm talking with people, and so many of them, of some of the most fantastic wines I'm trying, they're like, "Oh, you're from Ukraine, we still export to Ukraine," which is absolutely like fascinating.
Absolutely. So while people are tasting this and finishing off, should we pop up the Bakush videos so people can have a little look see?
Think about that.
So yeah, do that one.
Welcome back.
So yeah, I just think you see that video. Apart from that little last bit with the oak barrels, you can just see there's a lot of stainless steel, a lot of freshness. Everything looks pristine, clean, fresh, as it should be. There's not lots of rotting, moldy grapes lying around, and I think that really showcases the style, the freshness that we're getting from these wines.
This is a very good point. Aging is not just about space, although that's a massive part of it, but the financial impact in terms of cash flow. You've spent all of your money growing these grapes, all of your money harvesting the grapes, all of your money making the wine, and then if they have to sit there, that financial impact, if you can't sell them for another 5 years, is enormous for newer, smaller wineries. I think that's a very critical point. I think obviously it's worth pointing out that a lot of the wineries in Ukraine, while there's been a heritage of winemaking for many, many, many years, a lot of the winemakers are quite new to this. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I think there's been this wonderful garage sort of wine scene that's been coming up. A lot of sort of really creative, interesting people going on. But so a stylistic question here. Looking ahead, does Bakush only do light wines? And W5's from Wine 5's from someone else. It could have been yes, it could have been Bakush.
Before we answer what Bakush does, I'm just gonna say, as with every single tasting, I think there's some level of theme, and then I get sidetracked going, I just want to pour brilliant wines. And these were the wines that we tasted together at London Wine Fair, and I'm like, I want to work with these.
Well, these ones, yeah.
There's so many great wineries out there. We could have picked any of so many different Ukrainian wines to put in tonight that we tasted that were brilliant. And I think it's always tough with what we do with the club is we only get to showcase 6 wines,
and in this case 3 wines from Ukraine. So
the fact we only showcase 6 wines and we only do it 12 times a year, of all the wines in the world, we get 72 a year. So it's tough to pick, and we try and showcase as many great wines as we can. Of course, we could have done from talking to Sera, we could have done a year's worth of Ukrainian tastings and not gone anywhere else in the world because there were so many brilliant wines. So it's kind of, as we go around, we kind of try and showcase, as much and as broad a level of styles as we can.
And by the way, if you are feeling as a member of this club, this is your club. So if you're feeling that we're doing too much of something and not enough of something else, and you really want to see something else, shout at us. Go and tell us. We're all ears. We love getting feedback.
Alex is doing too much cooking.
Alex is doing too much cooking, and, you know.
So should we just have a, like we did last time, have a little look between the two tastings here?
Right.
But I think there's a lot of badges in this one. A lot of badges.
Yeah, badger. What does it mean?
They eat all the grapes. They're basically the birds of England. But
so yeah, I think you know the second one was more
fascinating differences, aren't there? Yeah.
Chewy, spicy, smoky, and the other one was fresher, fruitier, more drinkable.
I would have never thought that a Pinotage could be like that, and so I'm delighted to have tried it, because that's really challenged some of my kind of prejudices against the grape. So really, really cool. Very cool to do that.
So you're less anti-Pinotage now?
I'm less anti-Pinotage, I am, for sure. Absolutely.
That's good to hear.
Joanna thinks there's brilliant value to be found in Eastern European wines. I couldn't agree more. I think we've even like 5 or so years ago, we were really shocked at how Romania was starting to take some of the international varieties and do
the Pinot Gris and Pinot Noirs,
Pinot Noirs,
really well.
Yeah, absolutely everything. So there is still great value to be had, and but we have other people who want a few more weird orange wines. Well, we've got, that's always a request which we hear and we love to hear. So yeah,
the fact is we can always slide one in. I don't know if I'm ready to do 6 orange wines side by side.
I think what would be interesting is to do 2. For one that's pushing people to say, right, this is the orangiest of orange wines. It's been underground for 12 months on skins, and here's another one which has had the lightest of skin contact, and to explore where your preference lies in that thing, I think. But obviously it's so great.
You can do that month on away.
It's variety dependent. So yeah, that would be the month that you after you've done your Beaujolais one. So happy days.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so should we move on to Merlot?
I feel we should. I feel that would be a great plan. I'm still eating the coteletti, which are working very nicely.
Don't worry, Alex is having dinner. If you've got any questions, me and Sarah have got it covered. He's having a snack. It's okay. Done. Do you want to move the tasting notes on before we snack? And we have as we pour the Merlot, we've got a little video from the next one, Via Tinta. So we can play that while Alex snacks, and then we can come back and talk about the wine. Sounds like a good idea. Which
one is that? Is that
that is the one that when the Villa Tinta. It's got it in.
Oh, it's in the name there.
Yeah, the one that says Villa Tinta.
That one. That's a good guess. You only see it when you hover over it. It's not like a mystic.
Don't worry, just click the button. Yeah.
See you later.
Okay, so that's just a little overview. You can see Villa Tinta. So for those,
there wasn't meant to be any sound. Just for.
So for those who has joined the tasting last time Sarah was on, we did the Odessa Black from Villa Tinta, which was delicious, bold, jammy, fruity, rich, lovely style. So we've got another wine from them. So I'm going to hand back over to Sarah to kind of talk through the winery, the region where we are in Odessa, and the style of wines they're making here.
Yeah, so we are moving. We are still on the shores of the Black Sea, but we are in completely western part of it. Firstly, this is the first PDO we have in Ukraine. And they're not just in Odessa, they're located close to the lake Yalpuch, and they have like very particular soils and everything there. So we are in the Black Sea region, but on the western side of it. Secondly, they have a very lovely story. So they're kind of winemakers in generation, and apparently their grandfather was the one who was working in the lab where Odessa Black was developed and crossed and grown. So and thirdly, they have like the motto of the whole winery is to grow high concentrated, amazing quality grapes, but make wine that is affordable for people. And this is very interesting how they still manage to cross these bridges between quality and price. They're quite low intervention, as you can see, not in terms of any like winemaking approaches, but in terms of they do try to have a minimum impact on the soil. They're not using herbicides, they're not using pesticides and things like that. So they are trying as much as possible to just be part of natural Ukrainian habitat and doesn't influence it too much and doesn't kill the soil and doesn't kill everything around just because you have some vines there.
And I think that's really important. We're seeing more and more people really focusing on whether it's sustainable or green or biodynamic or regenerative farming. And there's becoming a realization about that. And I think consumers are really getting on side with that as well. That we're taking more note of what we eat and what we drink, where it comes from. And I've talked to a few wineries recently that we're going to try and do shows with that are about regenerative farming. Because my opinion, sustainable, we've gone too far. We've gone past the point of being able to be sustainable. We've got to go back to regen. We've got to start putting back into the earth what we've taken out. We've got to be able to, make things better again. And we're starting to see these brilliant techniques. And I think what's really interesting about these techniques that are coming, none of it really is new. It's the way it used to be. It's the way we used to have to do things. It had to be, you had to look after the soil. You had to go, because you couldn't just stick more fertilizer and more, because it didn't exist. You had to look after the world.
Let's not forget, comes from effectively the energy of fossil fuels. That's what we've done. It's only dates back to the Second World War, where the technique was created to turn the energy of fossil fuels into artificial fertilizers, which you can put in the soil. So you couldn't strip it out. You had people plowing in manure and all sorts of things. And you've got people like Sustainable Wine Roundtable. You've got huge amounts of work being done by the regenerative bodies, and it's really interesting to see this. But
I think what many people are not knowing and missing, that actually this is viticulture that is moving the whole agricultural sector and giving all the data, because like we cannot risk potatoes. If you start experimenting with potatoes, we can be starving. But wines, we have luxury and we have time to experiment, to collect data, how it works, and then to send it to the rest of the agricultural sector, which is like fascinating.
I don't know. I'd rather give up jacket potatoes than Pinot Noir.
Well, there are very few people around here who can do that. But
I bet if we put a poll on this group,
there'll be a very different results. But
we need more people like that.
Exactly.
When you've got ample supplies of calories in your diet, you may have a different view. But yes, absolutely. No, I think it's fascinating. I think that the fact that there is care going into the regenerative side of things, when there are so many other factors going into your winemaking, like you've got to be pretty dedicated to it. But it does have an impact on the flavour, and I think that's what we've seen. We've had discussions with viticulturalists from around the world, and the whole nature of whether you're feeding the vines something that's artificial and simple or natural and complex leads to more complex flavours in the wine. But let's talk more about these Merlots, shall we? Because I think they're quite different styles, and I would say potentially the Ukrainian one is they're both delicious. The Ukrainian one's potentially a fraction simpler. That would be my initial verdict on it. But I don't know why. There's a lot of
Like juicy, fruity style. Also quite good being chilled. So this is your like juicy, fruity expression of Merlot.
No, I think the first one feels a bit more of a technical wine, and I feel the second one is a much more quaffable wine.
Yeah, it's actually evolving in the glass quite interestingly, because it started off in my mind quite simple, but actually there's more complexities coming out of it now. That's strange. It's opening up.
But I think it's another grape that, you know, Merlot's got a bit of a bad rap out, you know, for the generic wine consumer. You know, the people in the wine world understand it.
We don't mind.
So what's interesting with which is the so we're seeing the big problem, and I don't know if this is done. So Sarah, let me know. Is the Ukraine making this Merlot slightly different for the UK market? Because I know the Chilean Merlot used to be at 14%, and they're trying to make it down to 12% because of the duty in the UK market. Are you seeing that there's different wine being made for different markets, or that's what you get?
We are not as big wine exporters as Chile, so we are not making different wines for everything. I think what they do is they planted Merlot and they're doing as best expression of it as they can. They decided that they will not go into the Bordeaux story like Colonist, which is also actually located in Yelbuch, and they're making more Bordeaux style wines. And I think we showed it maybe at the last straight tasting, I don't remember. But they're very much like high quality Bordeaux. These guys decided that they try to plant it. It is growing, but they don't want to make anything like French oriented, and they decided to make it just a chillable red kind of thing, like nice, fruity, easygoing, food friendly wine.
And I think there's such a place for more and more wines like this. Like, as we're talking about, people are drinking less, you know, different generations are getting away from wine. I think sometimes we try and make it too complicated for everyone, that you've got to have 84 pages of tasting notes, and sometimes it's like, you know, the same way that you finish work and you just have a cold beer. Why can we not just have a nice glass of wine, you know, without having to have all the text sheets and all that kind of stuff?
It doesn't need to be over simple. It's just it's all the things you like. And it does still work with food.
And don't forget that Merlot is that grape variety that first of all changes its flavors when it ripens from red fruit to black fruit, but also it drops acidity. So if you over-ripen it, you already set yourself up on a path to a big complex wine or something, because it already has like loads of the geminous and something, and you have to balance it out. They pick up a bit earlier with 12.5%, still perfectly ripe, not too much of green bell pepper going on, and saves this lively acidity to make it quaffable.
Well, that's the thing. The level of sugar ripeness, which is so dependent on the sunshine that hits the grapes. That hits the vine, and then this level of flavor ripeness and how that evolves over time. And they can go at the same speed, and they can go one well ahead of the other, one well behind the other. It's not a trivial thing.
Sugar is always rising with the temperature. So if you have a heat wave, unless your vines are getting stressed, your sugar is rising. This is why we always look for some cooling influence, because your aromas and flavors, they need time. And you cannot speed up this time. It's like with jacket potatoes that we mentioned. If you want to make it quicker and you put it at 400 degrees Celsius in your oven, you will end up with it a bit burnt outside and unripe, then raw inside.
And that's one of the best analogies I've ever heard for ripe. I love that.
Grape ripeness is like jacket potatoes.
That's genius. So that's
genius. Yeah, that's going to be in, you know, Forrest Gump 2. That's going to be a line.
I'm putting that in my next textbook of wine. That's fantastic. Wow, I love it. Brilliant. Shall I move the tasting notes onto wine 6 just so we've got?
Yeah, so people can put the notes in. So this is Casa Santiago, and this is Viña Requinga in Chile, Central Valley. These guys are a lot of fun. And Casa Santiago is kind of their entry level from what they do.
Yeah.
And to be fair, during lockdown, their Sauvignon Blanc was what kept us alive. Do you remember how hot the summer was of the lockdown?
There were a lot of
it was
families meeting in gardens for get-togethers in the same household
in groups of 6.
Groups of 6, and they'd ordered 6 bottles of the Sauvignon Blanc from Casa Santiago, and then at 5 o'clock in the morning, strangely, they
needed 12 more bottles.
But
yes, so Casa Santiago was how many cases of Sauvignon Blanc could I fit in a mini and drive around Tring during lockdown? But I was lucky enough to go out there last March, and they're a big producer. They do private labels, they do all this kind of stuff. But what's great is because they have some very, very, very top end wines. They have, a red blend that we sell their Lacou for about 60 quid a bottle. It means that they've got the tech, they've got the things in place, they've got a world-class winemaker. So even if the wine's at a more value price point, they've still got the rules, the regulations as to how they do things. And I think this is what they're going after. They're going after just a delicious, drinkable, and this range comes in a range of styles. So there's a Sauvignon Blanc, there's a Merlot, there's a Cab, there's a Pinot Noir, which are all really brilliant. And then you can go up the tiers. And I think we're seeing more and more of those. And I think it's important in the wine world for wineries that are a little bit bigger and want to scale and are doing more than one thing, to have these tiers to allow someone to have the everyday drinking wine and then go, all right, I have trust in this brand or this winery. So then when I wanted to go from spending 12 quid to 18 quid to 20 quid to 30 quid to 40 quid, whatever those numbers are, you're able to go on that journey with people. There's, and those steps, Penfolds do that really, really well. Some of the wines through the Gallo portfolio do that really, really well. And then there's other things that go, well, it's either £1 million or none. And that's quite difficult for some people. But I always have anything with wine travel, and Sarah, you probably go, you get a soft spot when you've been there somewhere and you've met the people and you've hung out with them and you've stood in the barrel room and you've drunk it in the vineyard. And sometimes whether it's a good, bad or indifferent wine, you get why that wine tastes like it does.
Yeah.
And you can go, all right, not my favorite, but it's like that because of this and this and this. And being able to share that is so exciting. So yeah, I love this because it's bold, it's fruity, it's easy drinking,
it's quaffable.
It's really fun.
I think both of these are in that category. I think we've got a great question here, which is, so why are the Ukrainian wines in general that we've seen tonight, these 3, slightly less concentrated? Is it to do with vine age, or the sunshine, the climate, the heat? What are we kind of seeing that's really?
Or Jamie's just not picked fair comparisons.
Or Jamie's comparisons.
You'll blame me if you like.
Yeah, it's his fault.
I think we are dealing with I would not call it concentration, to be honest. I would call it finesse. So these are very finesse leading styles. They have low extraction, very careful winemaking. This is not the wines that should blow you away and push you down, the road or whatever. These are wines to show sometimes different expression, like the Pinotage, to show what else can be done out of it. But to be honest, I would not call it less concentrated in general. It's just different style, different approach. And I would not judge all Ukrainian wines by that. I think we're doing just a little comparison of what the same grape can taste when it's growing, not in the region where we're supposed to have it. For instance, like when we think about Merlot, we think about Bordeaux. And what does it taste like from different regions? Well, when we think about,
for example, your colonist wine, like that we had the last time, super intense, super rich, and I think there is a whole overall question about the wine industry in general, that we were led down this path. There was for those of you who are in the wine industry, you probably know this, but there was a wine critic called Robert Parker, and his style of preference was super concentrated, high alcohol, everything turned up to 11 basically. And there were so many wineries all around the world. If you wanted to get reviewed well in his kind of guidebook, you did that super intense kind of thing. Yeah. And so we are
over extracted,
we overdid it,
over alcohol, done 15.5% and purple.
And that's one style of wine, and that's fine. If you love that, that's no problem with that. I don't mind. I love a wine like that, but I also think that it's important to recognize the subtlety and the kind of complexity. It's the difference between going to a rock concert or going to listen to a piece of classical music, where you get a variety of different dynamics coming through. And I think so. There's my jacket potato for you.
I prefer the jacket potato one.
But yeah, I think it's very important to say wines don't have to be shouty. They don't have to be that style. But there was a trend that if you didn't make it like that, you didn't get the points. The prizes.
Absolutely. And I think it's going to be really interesting when we go to, you know, wines of the night, because I on purpose didn't go which one's better out of these two. Really interested to see what people's favorite wines to drink are at the end of the night. And it's also right wine for right occasion. You know, it's if you're having dinner and you're having that, you'll have one wine. If you're sat in the garden, you're going to have a different wine. If you know, people go, "Oh, what's your favorite wine?" Well, it depends what I'm doing, who I'm with, what I'm. You know, there's a million and one questions. So, but yeah, I think there's been 6 brilliant wines tonight. I think it has showcased that you can get, you know, a Merlot doesn't always have to come from where you expect to be great. Nor does an Albarino, nor does a Pinotage. Can they be slightly different to what you might think they might be? Yes. But I think that goes back to my point, Sancerre versus Marlborough, you know, Loire Chenin versus South African Chenin, Sauvignon Blanc anywhere around the world is different. So this wasn't a whole point of going one is better than the other. This was to showcase that you can broaden your horizons. And if there's a place or a country or somewhere that you've not heard of, give it a go. You don't have to be scared of it. And is it an easy stepping stone? If there's a great varietal and a region that you've never heard of, that might be a step too far to pick it up off the shelf. But if it's a country and a region that you're not aware of, but you know Pinotage or you know Albarino or you know Merlot, that gives you an opportunity to dive in and try.
Like a Ukrainian Albarino, why don't you try a Ukrainian native grape variety? Sorry, autochthonous, but yeah, like so step by step, that's your wine journey. That's the great thing about this all. You go on this journey. But would you mind, Sera, if I ask briefly, because I would be fascinated to what extent is wine being drunk in Ukraine and particularly out of the major cities? Is it something that's a real part of the kind of the culture at the moment, or is it becoming part of the culture again, whereas it was once before, or what?
Fantastic question. We make a research now because loads of our history was hidden and forbidden to talk about and everything. And we have a person who is doing a proper wine research. So we have evidence that Ukraine was drinking wine as a part of the culture, like back to 2nd, 3rd, 4th centuries. We found some like wine knives, and we found these amazing stories when Turks were invading Ukraine, and when they finally made an agreement, they were like, okay, you should not drink what we are used to drink for celebration, which was a horse milk. You have to drink what you are used to drink, which is wine. Then, of course, we had this like horrible era of Soviet Union and alcohol ban and everything. Now it's coming back. Of course, wine is not something you probably will see being drunk like a lot in villages or whatever, but wine is a big part of our Christian religion. So this is what you're supposed to do. Like you're eating like body of Christ as a bread and drinking blood as a wine. So it was always kind of part of it. Now people drink a lot of wine, quite a lot of wine, and make a lot of wine. There is a lot of work in popularizing Ukrainian wines and making this pretty similar things like we are doing right now, just to show that it's not like that crap that was made during Soviet Union, this absolutely unbearable drink. It's something really delicious, very high quality, very modern style. And yeah, it becomes like it's exponentially growing. And I think Ukrainian market inside of Ukraine, like it's very different from British in some way. When Ukrainians are getting passionate about something, they are getting so deep into it that even I feel sometimes intimidated because they know so much, they learn so much, everything. When you go like to taste wine in Ukraine, it will be everything, starting from the knowledge of the sommelier who is serving you, and it shouldn't be like a Michelin star restaurant, it can be just a nice bar, and all the way down to fantastic glassware, loads of creativity and how they present things. It's fascinating.
I really think from the wines we've had tonight and then the wines we had on the previous tasting, we've done 9 wines which will all have their own identity, their own sense of place, their own style, and a really broad range. And were there some that might have been a bit polarizing, and for a Riesling, so you might love it, you might and that's okay. But that's what builds conversation about wine. If everything was the same and everyone liked it, we wouldn't do things like this. We go, it's about what people like, what people enjoy, and that's really important. But we will pop onto the quiz now.
Yeah, do you mind if I just quickly, because we've got a really great question from Russell about what impact is the war having? I think from my point of view, I'd be fascinated. We've seen the war is a constantly changing thing. It's atrocious, and the resilience of the Ukrainian people is an inspiration to all. But I think that for me, what I've seen from the news, and this I'd be fascinated to know to what extent this is real or not, is that the Ukrainians' tactics have changed dramatically in terms of targeting long distance infrastructure of the Russians in terms of oil refineries and supply chains and these kind of things. And the Russians have responded like toddlers, just lobbing 1.5-ton bombs on glide missiles straight into tower blocks of people. And I'd just be fascinated to hear a little bit about what it's like for the Ukrainian people at the moment and what impact that's having on everyone's lives. And
killing civilians is the main strategy of Russia since the beginning of the war. It's not a result of Ukraine getting stronger. Ukraine getting stronger is a result of not having enough weapons being sent to Ukraine, and we don't have a choice. If Russia gets even one piece of Ukraine, they will never stop, and Ukraine will not exist. But again, attacking civilians is the main strategy of Russia since the beginning of the war, and they're doing it for 5 years, and the winter is coming. War has drastic impact on winemaking. Missiles are falling in the vineyards. Fields are destroyed. Wineries are being destroyed. This summer, at least 3 big wineries lost nearly all of their stock because the warehouses were destroyed. Last harvest, bakery was under threat, and they asked, Ukrainian army did get information that they're one of the main targets of the next attacks, and they don't have to harvest. People said that it's okay, but they will harvest. And they were constantly getting ready to get out of the place. Our CEO of Ukrainian wine company, the company that has our wines in the UK and sells it and everything, had to bring additional help for the winemakers to blend the wines and everything, and they were nearly killed on the way to the winery. Wineries are struggling to send their wines both inside the Ukraine and outside, because it's sometimes they have instructions not to put any active movement or any big machinery that can be affected, and then they have to send pallets of wines being spread into small vans and pay tons of money for 10-20 vans to go with a pallet that usually takes only one car. This pretty much standard procedure. So it has absolutely horrendous impact, but it also has horrendous emotional impact, and this is what this war is teaching us as well. How people are getting united, how people are supporting each other, how people live now, because what can you do? You can lie down and die, or you should live, maybe it's your last day, but then live it to the fullest. And people are planting new vineyards. People are planting and naming them after the fallen friends, after the fallen sommeliers, after those who gave their life for Ukraine to be and never will come back, but at least maybe the vineyards that are planting now will survive and hold their names for the generations to come.
Wow.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Tough. All right.
Yeah, that's a reminder to us all, and I think that's one of the things that I found toughest is just this feeling that people get war fatigue from outside of the country, and it's just another piece of news that's coming in, and and we can't get complacent, because that's always my top test is, if you've got a war and one side stops fighting, what will happen to the other side? And follow that logic through. We've seen what happened in Bucha. We've seen what happened, with the theatre where children were sheltering underneath, and it was written on the ground outside, children, and still it was attacked. So we know what would happen, and we can't waver in our support for Ukraine. So thank you so much for that grounding in what's really still happening today, and don't get blasé about it, because they will not stop until the war is over. But the ingenuity, the strength and resilience of the Ukrainian people and the warriors who are fighting is an inspiration certainly to me. And it's always such a pleasure to have you on our channel, and to hear these things and to taste these amazing products that people are making in the most ridiculously difficult of circumstances. So I'm going to move on now, because otherwise I'm going to get too emotional. So let's. Well, you've got a quiz, haven't you?
Yes,
a quiz. So the quiz tonight is about something rather different to normal. We're not going to talk specifically about Ukraine. We're going to talk about comparisons. Am I right?
Kind of. So we'll
join the quiz.
Give you a minute to log in, and while you get logged in, I'll just do my general promo for what's going on next. So next week I am heading up to Norfolk to do a little bit of filming, meet some wineries. So next month's tasting is going to be Wines of Norfolk. 3 wineries: Walshingham, Burn Valley, and Wimbury, who in 2005 won the best white wine in the world. So
I don't believe they mentioned that.
They've not done. Whatever you do, don't mention that. So I'm going up to see them, do some interviews, do some things. So it'll be a really nice, interactive, glossy, pretty his and drone shots. Jamie's been there, excited holiday thing. The month after that, Alex, who's in the chat of Not Yet Named Wine Company, has been kind enough to decide to join the madness for a month. So if you've not heard of him, check him out. He does wine making by crowdsourcing. So he will go somewhere, you join his club, he's making some wine, and he will let you make the decisions as to what you want to do. And because he is coming on board, we are going to have some wine selected, but we are going to give you the choice of some of the wines that you would like to taste during the tasting. So if you're a member, you'll get that automatically. If you're not, get yourself the tasting pack and go from there. So we can send you out the option. So really, really excited for that. Outside of that, I'll pop it up after the quiz, but we're launching a new kind of club. It's not really a club, it's just drinking good wine. But we've done single serve little tasting packs for forever, and we don't have something for people to just get bottles of wine. So we're launching a wine club called The Vault. It runs every 2 months. There's 2 tiers. There's one for £90, one for £180, and you get 6 bottles of wine. There's no quiz to see what you like. There's no AI sommelier. There's no all that crap everyone's doing.
So every single day we get told about a new AI sommelier that
will demystify wine for you. I have tasted lots of wine. So I'm going to pick 6 bottles of wine that I think are cool, interesting, fun, and properly good drinking that I will send you. We're limiting it to 100 founding members, so I can make sure I've got brilliant wine for everyone. We're about 3/4 of the way there. So if you want to get involved, and I'm ordering metal cards, so you get a metal membership card with your number engraved on it, and you'll never see it.
Our random cases have effectively acted as a bit of a bin end, obviously, because that's the sensible thing. When we tend to have a few bottles left over, then we put them in a random case and we discount them. But this is a chance for him to express himself as a sommelier. So that's cool. Anyway, we've got lots of people waiting in the chat. So let's move on to the quiz.
Okay, so as always, answer the question. Right is good, quick is better. And if you win, we'll send someone
I need to turn this off, don't I? No, so we don't. So where else is making world-class Albarino? Is it Mexico, India, Uruguay, or Canada?
This is where someone calls me out that they know one place in one country.
There's one place in Uzbekistan which is doing sensational. So, 92% have said Uruguay, and the rest have said Canada. But which one was it? Yes, it was Uruguay. Well, I think we might have mentioned that
a few times,
but
but
that's
there we
good.
go.
That shows people are paying attention. Joanna is in the lead. It is close. It is
Ian's
close.
tied.
Let's move on to the next question.
Ian's second. That's the highest Tottenham's going to be all season. Call it early.
Grapes can have many names, but Sensibel, Ul de Liebre, and Aragonés are all Grenache, Pinotage, Tempranillo, or Merlot. Je ne sais pas. Sarah knows this.
Of course she does.
She's
She's a professional.
She's a pro. Exactly. And 50% think Tempranillo, and they are correct. Very good, very good. Well done. Tempranillo is the grape of 1,000.
There's probably another 10 things I could have put in that list.
So Joanna remains in the lead.
I told you about Ian, didn't I? He's gone. He's gone.
Dropped.
Nowhere to see. Relegation form.
Okay, and on to the next question. The grape Carmenere is now strongly associated with Chile, but from where did the original grape originate?
Why don't you just read the question?
Because I'm
making words up.
Just making words up. You know, that's my job, isn't it? I've got to do something these days since I don't find any grapes to make any wine. Spain, Ukraine, France, or Italy are the 4 choices, as you can probably read. We got a tie between Spain, France, and Italy. Nobody thought Ukraine.
I have to have a word with Bekush. Get some Carmenere planted.
Yeah. Actually, they've already. France is the correct answer. Jolly good. Next question. Whoa, Joanna remains in the lead.
At high speed.
Oh, very, very quick and accurate. Kathy hanging in there. Chris and Sally hanging in there. Excellent work. Just one wrong question, it all changes. Next. Where's Jamie going next week? Well, I'll tell you where I'm going next week. I'm going to Istria in Croatia. And so
you're giving away the next question. I said, "Where's Alex going?"
I didn't know that.
I didn't really.
Oh, good. All right. Okay.
Look, Peter, look at that. I only talked about it for about 3 minutes.
That's
all right. Hey, I've got to keep it, people happy.
100% win. So, funnily enough, Joanna's still in the lead.
But it's, she could have. Depends how quickly she answered.
Yeah. Next question.
Considering
Primitivo from Italy and Zinfandel from California are the same grape. But from where does it originate? That's a very good question. So the options are France, Croatia, Georgia, or Greece.
I do like it when there's grapes that everyone knows. There's actually some heritage to this that they go, oh, really?
Yeah,
that's cool. I like that.
Exactly.
I like that.
Well, I think I'm going to be having a lot of Malvasia next week.
Oh, there's a blend.
Oh,
the big numbers for Georgia. But the answer is Croatia. What has that done?
I will be having some Primitivo, but not called that. What's it called in Croatia?
You
can't remember. I can't remember either. Joanna remains in the lead. No, very few people got that one right, but it's very close indeed. So if we are drinking and comparing some Barolo, Barbaresco, and Langhe, which grape are we most likely to be tasting?
Albarino.
It's not Albarino because that's not on the list, Jamie. If it was,
to be fair, you wouldn't be surprised if that was the answer and I hadn't put it on the list.
It wouldn't be the first time that we haven't actually put the answer on the list. But
there's a little bit of a blend in there.
A little bit of a mixture. But it is
Nebbiolo.
Correct. Joanna remains in the lead. Kathy
it's all that time.
So if we're now talking about the grape Steen in South Africa, what would be the ideal wine to compare it against? Would it be a Loire, Chenin Blanc, probably. It's strange how we pronounce grapes differently, isn't it? Like Sauvignon, Chenin Blanc, Chenin Blanc, yeah, Moselle Riesling, Sangiovese, or Saperavi from Georgia. Most people seem to think it's a Chenin.
No one thinks it's Italian.
No one said Chenin. But they're correct.
Kathy
jumps into the lead
by a second.
So close.
By a second. Two questions left.
What do Etna, Santorini, and Lanzarote have all in common? Are they volcanic? Do they grow the same grapes? Do they only make white wines? Or are they all parts of Italy? Good question. Enable, zoom, and scroll. What does that do?
Don't click that
Don't
with one
click the
question to
random
go.
buttons, no.
Well, that's what you love doing.
Well, it's there for a reason, to push the red button. Everyone said
100%.
volcanic soils, and guess what? They're correct.
So-
Jolly good. Kathy.
It's tied.
It's tied.
It's
tied.
It's tied.
Oh,
I hope the
this is literally a tiebreaker.
I hope the last question is sensible.
Oh no. Oh, what's he done?
Ready, steady, go.
I'll let you read this one out.
No, people can read it for themselves at home. I don't want to do it with my accent.
Havan or Javan or whatever. Great hog, honey, and American, or all types of what? It's one of those strange things. I hate the way the Americans say herb. Herb is, they don't say, I'm going to an hotel. I'm going to go and check into an hotel.
Yeah, but we talk about an horse, don't we?
But yes,
Right.
some do. Horse, bee, badger, wild boar.
Oh, someone thought I've gone on off piece, didn't they? Someone thought I got on piece to pick wild boar.
What is
Sadly you're
what is
wrong.
the result? Let's click through. It's strange enough a badger. That's a long story.
Tottenham Hotspur by a second.
Nicking the results. Jolly good. Jolly good.
Ian, pop me a
done,
message and let me
Ian.
know who needs
A
a
free tasting.
thing. Alex from the not yet named wine company has come 5th. Does that keep him good enough to come and do a tasting with us? We can still come on
I
board.
think that's fine.
But while people vote for this wine night, do you want to hide that one
Oh
away?
yeah, I'll hide that.
Sarah, any final thoughts on Ukrainian wines and what people should be looking for? Just to say, the wines we had on the last tasting, I'm going to send an email out tomorrow. They're going to be back up on the website tomorrow.
Yeah.
So if you want
still got
that,
a few left. Yep.
we are not putting the prices up. We're going to put up a QR code so you can scan and go and find the prices.
Oh, should I do
But
that?
I'll leave Sarah to.
Oh yeah, let's let people
finalise the
vote.
evening.
And yeah, final words from Sarah, I think.
Thank you very much. It was absolutely fantastic to pair these wines and compare these regions. It was so much fun. I'm very, very happy to hear all of your comments and questions. It was amazing. And yeah, thank you for this opportunity. I really enjoyed it. I think it was like huge fun. And I hope that it will open some new perspective on some grapes or some regions that you haven't tasted before.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. No, we've really enjoyed having you on again, and it's been hugely interesting and a very different tasting to the last time that we worked together. So so that is great. I'm trying to find your QR code with the thing. It's probably
if you go to where it says QR
that'll be
codes.
the one, isn't it? So get the wines. There we go. Is that the same, by the way?
That's the same. That's just a bigger one.
Just the bigger one. I'll do the big one
And
as
you can
well.
put the vault up as well if anyone wants to join the vault.
That's going to replace that.
Yeah, replace that.
Yeah, no, let's leave that with them because we want them to buy some Ukrainian wine because that's a good thing. Oh, holy moly! Wow, that's really interesting.
So excited to see that.
I think we're about there on the results are ticking in, but there is a strong winner tonight.
I think you
In
can.
fact, we've got a first and second place, haven't we?
I think you can showcase the whole lineup tonight. It doesn't matter. Just,
You reckon?
Just put it back on the screen. We usually go, but yeah.
Gosh, that's controversial. I can't remember how to do it there. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
The wine of the night is the Albarino from
Wow.
Pinotage, and the Pinotage only just behind it. That's fantastic.
So there we go. If you like, Pinotage is coming back up there. So as always, you know, we love doing the tastings. We love sending the tasting packs out. But you know, if you love these wines, scan the QR code, buy some. If we are suddenly out of stock, they can get them for you directly, can't they, Sarah?
Yes.
And where would they find them if they can't find them from us?
If they don't come from you guys, you can always go on Ukrainian wines, UA wines UA wines in UK. We have online shop. It will be delivered to you next day.
There we are. Look at that. Look at that. So there is more than one place to get your Ukrainian wines.
Ooh, what have we just done? I'm trying to get that up. Add. No, it's gone. No, it won't let me do it. That's fine.
But I'll send out an email by the end of the week and just kind of summarize what we've done, what we're tasting, where to get the wines from. If you need anything else, you can always give us a shout. But as always, it's been a pleasure. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us again. It's been great to
Have
tell.
questions, you can always come to me as well. about it.
Absolutely. So we've got to work out what the next theme is.
That's a very, very good question. I am going to risk various bits of copyright law, and we are going to go out rather than to our usual sort of exit. I have a little Ukrainian song that I'm going to put up, which is called Pinotage. Do you know this one, Sarah?
I do.
It is. It's a song which is talking effectively about war and people's attitudes towards it. But it's actually called "The Duckling Floats Down the River." What's it? Ticina. Ticina.
Yeah.
Thank you. But we look forward to seeing you next time.
I'm just going to say, when he stops cooking and doing songs, he might have some time to talk about the wines. But I'm going to let him click buttons. I'm going to say goodnight to everyone. Sarah, it was a pleasure. Everyone at home, thank you so much as always. And we'll see you next month.
See you next month.
Cheers.
Bye for now.
Thank you.
По Тисині, плине кача по Тисині. Мамко ж моя, не лай мені, мамко ж моя, не лай мені. Залаєш ми в злу годину, залаєш ми в злу годину. Сам не знаю, де погину, сам не знаю, де погину. Погину я в чужім краю, погину я в чужім краю. Хто ж ми буде брати яму? Хто ж ми буде брати яму? Виберуть ми чужі люди, виберуть ми чужі люди. Ці не жаль ти, мамко, буде, ці не жаль ти, мамко, буде. Якби ж мені, синку, не жаль, якби ж мені, синку, не жаль. Ти ж на моїм серцю лежав, ти ж на моїм серцю лежав. Плине кача по Тисині, плине кача по Тисині.